Welcome back to This Is Live, the Sunday talk show here on the Arise News channel. With me, I have Professor Anthony Kila, Professor of Strategy and Development and Institute Director at the Commonwealth Institute of Advanced and Professional Studies, as well as Professor David Aworawo, Professor of International Relations and Strategic Studies at the University of Lagos. Gentlemen, thank you for joining me. Well, we've had three guests, three issues. Oil and gas, the mainstay of the Nigerian economy, with Toyin Akinsho reviewing what the Tinubu administration has done and talking about the way forward. We had Chief Wole Olaoye, again talking about 1 year of Tinubu administration and the controversial reversion to the old national anthem. And then South Africa, from where we're expecting, the final tally of results. And just about now, with Sumna Sambo, Arise political editor, who was on the ground, reporting from there, and who had the first, hand ringside, eyewitness, account of what transpired. Let me start with you, Professor Kila.
Well, let us go with the order in which it has been tabled out. Oil and gas, because given the importance of oil and gas to our economy, both our export and our GDP, regardless of the exact quantity of it, it is number one, and number two is a long distance from oil and gas in everything we produce and the revenue we generate. And that tells me that it needs to be an area in which everybody should be very interested in and everybody should be dealing with directly. At the moment, it's not so. Regardless of what we say, and I'm not happy when people say things like the people living are living with just a little quantity or not a lot of investment. Where we are, nobody should be living. You are wondering on the reason why is Angola more attractive, or why they're going to Angola. Why are they going to anywhere? We should be attracting more, not losing anyone. So overall, the reason why people are leaving are security, uncertainty of our law, multiple tax problem is what they've also listed among as well. But very importantly is politicization of commerce and trade. That is something that international investors don't like unless they're individually friends of those who are in power. If you operate in a country where you're not friend of the people in power, it becomes very difficult to operate and you are tempted to go away. Moving forward, which is a question you were very interested in, I noticed, what is it we can do as a country? There's a very simple thing we can do, I believe. Let the Ministry of Economic Planning lead a project in conjunction with other ministries to open a desk called Talk to Us Before You Leave. That desk will have the duty of liaising with any international company in Nigeria that shows signs of want to live in the country, or if they have any complaints, so that they will talk to them and find out in very cogent terms, very tangible, listable terms, what are the problems they are facing. And if the government can provide solutions to those problems, they provide it to them so that those people do not leave. If the government cannot provide solutions to that problem, the government will know that these people are leaving soon, and they will start advertising that space that will open up, knowing how to deal with it in the future. That is a very clear thing that can be done about that. I think, I say this because it's important for us to know that where we are today, what we should be doing is attracting more people, not letting one go. Even if it's somebody who is just doing one packet of toothpick, we should be keeping them. The government that wants progress and prosperity should be doing everything to make businesses grow, stay, consolidate, not lose them. Why? Because they are providers of goods and services, and they are providers of wealth and jobs. And those are what we need more. In terms of the, you also discussed the national anthem. Again, this national anthem thing, there's a piece today which is looking forward to yesterday. It's just an evolution that generally I don't mind, but there's something about it that doesn't speak of greatness. So that doesn't look big. Expressions like natives, I've had cause to say it publicly elsewhere. Let me repeat here. It's an archaic derogative expression. And I want viewers to understand something. There's a tendency to think it's a temporal issue. To think today in 2024, calling people native is derogatory, using tribe is derogatory. Let me tell something to our viewers. It has always been derogatory. Even in the 50s, even in the 40s, even forever and ever. How do I know? Read all the literature in the world, and you will see that the Westerners do not ever refer to themselves neither as natives, rarely as tribes. It's a thing that was always been reserved to Africans. But that is where we are. It is neither here nor here. I think the idea of given all that is going on in the country, that, and I hold more the president, the legislative arm of government than the president, that given where we are in the country, our interest, our focus should be on national anthem. Is a bit like living leprosy and dealing with Alzheimer. It's a kind of situation that comes to my mind. But that is where we are. I understand that in the assessment of the year, you cited my dear friend and brother Donyo Kupe saying Tinubu is
Jesus Christ.
Is Jesus. I'm very worried about Donyo Kupe. That kind of statement is not only debilitating, it's ridiculous, and it's not worthy of the man. And we should not say things like this, because as Chief Olaoye rightly noticed, that it's not, even Tinubu himself will be worried if he starts equating Jesus Christ. By the way, it is not that you cannot say somebody is Jesus Christ of a situation. It is very possible to say so, whether you're religious or you're secular. The essence, when you put Jesus Christ in the scene, you think of miracle, you think of big vision, you think of simplicity, you think of something that is something you aspire to, but is human. God that turns to flesh, that lived like men, but acted way beyond men and did miracles. I wish Tinubu administration and everybody all the very best for the benefit of Nigeria, but for now, it's very far away from Jesus Christ. So we should stop saying, things like that. Let's not confuse people. Otherwise, we create a generation of dullards due to what they hear, and we create a situation where people can say whatever they want to say. So oil and gas, national anthem. I think the other issue we dealt with
South Africa.
Is South Africa. The South African issue, it's a chronicle of a fault, of a foretold drama, because really, ANC has been misbehaving, both in government, both in politics. It does not come as a surprise that they're losing votes. I think the fascinating thing to look now, to see how it's going to play out, is how the coalition can be formed. The natural, let's leave the natural, because the natural coalition is ideological. The coalition that I see, or better still, I think what I find interesting, is that the DA seems to be ready for government. And they want to go into coalition with them. And this is the joy, or, I don't know if it's joy, it's the fun of politics, as a game of the impossible, because you don't get more different than DA and the ANC. But the DA man, I read his statement, I read his interview, and he was saying that let us put aside our differences and let's look at what unites us. So he's ready for government. Let's see how that goes.
Professor Aworawo.
Yeah, I agree entirely with Professor Kila that no investor should be allowed to go. Many of them are leaving the oil and gas sector. They are focusing, offshore. They're having problems with, oil exploitation, in many communities, and they think that if they focus offshore is better. But beyond that, many are, living entirely. Many are selling off to, local players and all. Whatever can be done to get those who are already here to remain here should be done. Unfortunately, it's not only in the oil and gas sector. We also have that in other sectors, diaper manufacturers of household items. Yes, so many of them are leaving.
Sanofi.
Yes, yes. It's very concerning because the government spends so much money going all over the place to look for investors to come, while those who are here, are leaving. It should be very concerning. And then I want to make a statement which I will use to discuss every other thing I will discuss, on the other the other issues. And that is what I've always talked about. philosophy, trying to, establish the cause of what is happening, and trying to establish the best course of action, and that becomes a basis for action. If I want to speak of 1 year of the administration, that is one thing I won't talk much. 1 year is very short. And then the problems that the government inherited, multiplicity of problems and all that. But we can talk about the way the government has carried on until now, and what can be done so that the next 1 year will be far better than the previous 1 year. And I keep saying it, philosophy. For instance, companies are leaving. We have not seen a study carried out to establish why they are leaving and how to get them to remain here. Tomorrow we hear another one has left. And that is very concerning. And it seems to be running through virtually everything the government does. And that takes us to the national anthem. That I agree entirely with Chief Olaoye, that if we had more consultation, they won't go near it. There are three key issues that, problems with the anthem, why they shouldn't have gone near it at all. If they wanted a new anthem, they could have set up a committee to get a new anthem entirely. One is the timing. Just like Professor Kila said, at this point in time, this national anthem that is a headache. There's an Isoko saying that if wood falls on top of wood, it's the one on top you carry first, as a way of saying you prioritize. If you have to prioritize the national anthem that we'll be talking about, that's one. Then the other two, the content, the message, and the messenger. Tribe. It's very clear. English is not Isoko, it's not Urobo, it's not Hausa, it is English. And those who use it, even the English dictionary itself, Oxford English, makes it very clear that a tribe is a community, a social group made up of families and clans, and usually seen as primitive. No. Yes.
Primitive is a key word.
Yes. And that is, just as he said, read any book, all the books you read on the West, Europe, you won't find any of them referring to themselves as a tribe.
Or
native, as the case may be. In fact, when Trevor Roper he said barbarous tribes. He will always use, qualified barbarous tribes. Why would we in 2024 go and those derogatory terms that were used, condescending, racist, condescending, that were used to describe us then, 18 years after they were used, President Obasanjo, we looked at it, threw it away. And then 46 years later, we went to bring it back. If we had consultation, of course, all of this would have been brought to the fore, and nobody will have gone near it. And President Tinubu has an advantage. He listens. The other time we're talking about cryptocurrency, charging for whatever, cyber, they attend. So several other things.
So let's keep telling him.
Yes.
Well, I get the point. You guys will come back later and say, why these too many somersaults?
No.
Why is the government perpetually somersaulting?
It's also part of what I'm saying, that if we have philosophy from the beginning, we won't need to go that direction. But since we didn't go there, if we take a step back, it's better than And then moving forward, let us now use this philosophy. Let us always have robust engagement before we jump into things, so that we don't make mistakes that will start going back and forth. But that anthem is a bad thing. The message, that first stanza. In fact, the British will be laughing at us. These people know what they are doing. And then the messenger. Please, Dr. Abati, do you know one country on planet Earth, there are 193 of them, that has the national anthem written by a foreigner? I don't know of any. It's an insult on 200 million Nigerians that we can't have a group of people who compose an anthem that will be our own. It's one of the reasons why they threw it away.
South Africans. After the end of apartheid,
it's freedom.
They changed to Unkosile. Africa.
That is it. It's very similar to the one in Zambia. That's axis. Zambia, Zimbabwe, South Africa.
Yes.
That is how it is. It has to. In fact, that's one of the reasons why it was thrown away 78, because it was not.
It was influenced by that.
Yes.
For the lesson of history.
Did we ask questions? Why did President Obasanjo, head of state, at that time, say they should jettison it? If we ask questions like that, we would have, reflected on this and then come to something.
We have a National Assembly of representatives from every hamlet.
I'm sure. Did they call for?
They passed this bill within 1 week.
That is the thing.
They made it into law.
It's even very. What is
okay, professors? Yes. I understand your concern. the national anthem is a creation of the law. It's called the National Anthem Act.
Yes.
What of the people who now say they will never respect that national anthem?
No. It's the law now. What we can continue to do is to agitate for either reverse to the other one or a new one entirely. But as long as the law is there, it is difficult to say, oh, I won't obey the law. It's like people were saying that, oh, they don't regard President Tinubu as their president. I mean, that is, the law is the law. That's why one way to change society is to change laws. If you can change laws, you change society. Then South Africa. It's interesting that Zuma has resurrected from the dead, politically. And in fact, apart from the two things I will talk about, and that about democracy, what democracy is. Zuma was just convicted, not that he's, we will say, alleged to. He has been convicted, but not in that, he has been convicted.
Felon.
Yes, he has been convicted already.
Well, the matter was contained.
Well. And now he forms a party a few months and he wins 15% of the votes. And he's now a contender for whatever. Well, it tells you what democracy can be or cannot be when certain dynamics are in place. Then the coalition. I think Zuma and Ramaphosa will look for a way to reconcile. That's the closest
Natural,
they can get. If the two characters can resolve their differences.
Zuma is saying he doesn't want Ramaphosa.
That is what
president.
He has to forget about that. He has to forget about how Ramaphosa displays him and all that. That's the only way we can be in government. The DA's ideological position is too far.
Center
right. No.
There's no one DA in that
because
government.
I know they will fight. Black empowerment program is dear to ANC. It's dear to everybody in South Africa. All the other parties except DA. That because the blacks have been far behind, and there's a program that is bringing them up. The DA does not believe in it. That would be a contentious issue that they will fight over. So the Ramaphosa has to look for a way to reconcile with Zuma so that they can form a coalition and move South Africa forward.
Okay, let's go to the U.S. Donald Trump spoke at Trump Tower on Fifth Avenue after being found guilty in a New York trial. The former president began his remarks by referring to his felony conviction as rigged. Trump repeats claims his prosecution is politically orchestrated, saying, and I quote, "If they can do this to me, they can do this to anyone," end of quote. The ex-president was convicted on all 34 counts of falsifying business records in his historical trial on Thursday. This is the first time a former or serving U.S. president has been convicted of a crime. Trump can still run for president. He could be sent to prison when he's sentenced on 11th July, but legal experts say a fine is more likely. Well, I mean, the issue, of course, is that within 24 hours, he got more money from Wall Street, from elite donors, running to about $58.3 million. He went to a UFC event in Newark, New Jersey. He got a standing ovation. Everybody was excited. Now we're told this matter can even go on for the next 1 year. And he himself has said, November 5, the people will take a decision. The American Constitution says you have to be at least 34 years. You must be natural born citizen. You must have lived in the U.S. for 14 years. It doesn't say anything about conviction. But in some states, like Florida, New York, there are provisions about persons who are in prison. But will he go to prison? I don't think Justice Merchant will go that far. Professor Aworawo, what do you think?
Well, democracy, like Zuma, like Trump. Is it not funny that, they didn't just go and capture Trump somewhere and they started trying him and there's no evidence and then they are trying to just, with all of those things, he has people who are, in fact, I watched somebody was saying, he will kill somebody for Trump. He is ready to die for, in the aftermath of this. It tells you that all over the place, democracy is, facing challenges. And who knows, Trump could win. He could win the election. He will not likely be sentenced to be sent to prison, maybe a fine or something. And then his followers will be fired up. And then they will continue, and and then more people are joining. It tells us that perhaps there has to be a way to fine-tune democracy. such that reasonableness would be the defining feature. What we are seeing now is shocking. Just like we are seeing in KwaZulu-Natal in the South Africa, we are also seeing in different parts of the United States with the Trump. But let's see how it goes. He will not likely go to prison. He will likely be the candidate of the Republican Party in the election. But let's hope it does not translate to a second presidency of Trump.
Professor Kila?
Well, the case of Trump, it's politicizing illegal matters. Because in reality, Trump was tried by a jury that was co-selected by his own side and the side of the prosecutor. They could have, and they did reject some people from that jury. That jury saw 34 charges and found him guilty on all 34. In law, from what we've seen from the court, Trump is guilty of those charges. In life, from what you read on Chronicle, Trump is easy to consider him a liar, a con man, a narcissist, and those are just facts. Now, the fact that people vote for him or people like him is because, and this is a concern Professor Aworawo was pointing to here, because we're moving away from the original intention of democracy. When the modern democracy was founded, the premises upon which it was founded that we ought to be following has never been personalization of anything. It has always been around ideas. There's always been around parties, principles, and programs. Every time in the story of humanity that Caesar has come up in modern time, a charismatic leader, it has always ended up badly. Be it from Hitler to Mussolini to Berlusconi to Trump, everywhere in the world. Stalin. Everywhere in the world where society, groups, organizations, ideas, is around a man, is around an individual, it ends up badly. Charisma is overrated. Even in churches, when religion, and in mosque, when religion becomes about a man.
Charisma worked for Winston Churchill, though. So there are exceptions to the rule.
We have to be very careful.
It worked for Kemal Atatürk.
You see, we have to be very careful. In the lifetime of Winston Churchill, he wasn't this great charismatic leader. He's a myth. He was a man who negotiated, fought his way all the time. He was derided and mocked. He was known as a drunkard. The myth of Winston Churchill came on later on. He worked in the parliamentarian system where he had to work with them. Charisma, individualism, is Berlusconi, is Ayatollah, is all those things in which ideas, principles, morals are suspended and a human being is followed. And it always leads badly. We need to think about that very seriously when we're thinking of democracy. And demagogues know very well how to play with this. Because if you look at all dictators and demagogues in the world, they have two things in common. They are able to use fear and vice to dominate others and propaganda. And that is what they all tend to do. And even Nigeria has to be very careful. Because the way they start, it's a kind of, they use two things. Either a kind of collective anesthesia in which people fall asleep, or some kind of frenzy that they create. Trump is going for the frenzy. Elsewhere, they're making people sleep by throwing insensitive things and sending people to bed. We need to be very careful about it.
Okay, let's take our final story. Nigeria's main labor unions, the Nigeria Labour Congress and the Trade Union Congress, have announced that they will embark on an indefinite strike starting from June the 3rd, 2024. That is tomorrow. The unions say the strike has become necessary because of the federal government's refusal to increase the 60,000 naira it offered at the resumption of the tripartite committee meeting. The strike was declared at a joint press conference by NLC President Joe Ajero and TUC President Festus Usifo. In the meantime, the federal government has resorted to begging the labor unions to say, please do not go on strike. Minister of Information, Mohammed Idris, put out a statement. Organized private sector is also saying, look, if you go on strike, it will disrupt many things. It will affect businesses. But organized labor is saying, we want, no longer 615,000, but now 494, but not 60,000. Federal government says 60,000 is in fact a 100% increase, and that's the best they could do under the circumstances. I understand organized labor is meeting this afternoon. Would they proceed with the strike, or would they accept the appeals from government and from organized private sector? Professor Aworawo.
Well, we hope that the way we have had it several times, on the eve of the strike, some nocturnal meetings will hold, and then we wake up in the morning and we hear the announcement that no more strike. We hope that will happen tonight. Because like the organized, the private sector has said, a strike will do no one any good. It will exacerbate the very bad condition that the economy is already, is already. And it won't be good for anyone. If a strike commences, all sides will still return to the negotiating table to reach a consensus. So why not do the consensus, and then avert a strike? I expect that will happen overnight. Well, it's true, 60,000 is 100%, but we know the price of goods have gone up 400, 500%. Even some are even over 1,000%. So if you say 100%, it looks, big on the surface, but when you also look at how much the price of things have gone up, that 100% is just, it's just by the way. So the government will need to increase, labor will need to come down. Let them go and meet this night, not only labor meeting. After the labor meeting, the government should invite labor, let them meet overnight, and the government should go up, labor should come down, they should reach an equilibrium and avoid strike. Strike will not be good for any of us. The economy is already lying prostrate. Things will go far worse if a strike commences tomorrow. And once a strike commences, it becomes more intricate to handle. And then, of course, labor will be under pressure not to accept even what they would have accepted before the strike commences, which is why we are appealing to government, not just to make a release. Call labor, raise the thing, labor should come down, let reasonableness prevail, and let there be concession from both sides, and let us reach something that will make us avert strike tomorrow. That strike will not be good for anyone.
Professor Kila?
Well, I do agree. I think the strike will not be good for anyone. But I also think that the strike will not be good for any side. Why? Because the economy does not need strike right now. We need to be producing and operating, not suspending operations and production. It is not good for labor because it might fail. Why might it fail? Let's say that. Because even workers don't need strike right now. Nigeria is a country where people don't live by just their salary. People live by tips, by a little bit of things happening around in their workplace. So it is a country where people live by everyday cash coming in. So telling workers not to go, you're actually doing them more damage, perhaps in the name of a better future, but you're doing harm to them and they might be tempted to desert you. Deserting you might mean labor might fail in its threat. And if labor fails, it's bad for the leadership and it's bad for the body itself. What do? I blame both sides. I think we're going on a path that we shouldn't be going to. I think the government has a major blame. The government should have avoided this talk of increase. They should have gone to that negotiation table and making the fact that, look, we have no money to increase it. So therefore, these are the things we're going to do.
No. What happened was that the new National Minimum Wage Act of 2019 had an expiry date.
Yes.
It expired on April 8, 2024. So you needed to come up with a new law.
And that is my point. If I were part of this government, I would have gone before April, around February, to say, listen, guys, we're going to move the date forward. Let us agree that we cannot review it on that date because we have no money. Because we cannot do it on that date.
No, if the law expires.
We're going to go. We're going to say, the new law. That's what I'm saying. A new law to say that expires, it will be reviewed. And in the meantime, these are the things we're going to bring to the table as a counter to increasing wages. Why? Because we don't have money. Because the old wage that we promised you, so many parts of government have not been able to pay it, which shows the money is not there. So what do? We are going to reduce the cost of government and we're going to give you alternative things to make that same amount of money you have. We're going to do policies to know that your 10,000 naira will actually be worth 10,000 naira. we should explain to labor that if we give you more money, that money will simply go into inflation. Allow me to use an example I always say to labor people when I tell them this. Imagine a situation where a labor leader goes to negotiate for labor people. The wage is 30,000 naira. He goes and negotiates for 3 days, comes back, and on his way, he takes a taxi. The taxi costs him 3,000 naira. He goes to negotiate 300,000 naira. He comes back. On his way back, the taxi to take him back home charges him 30,000 naira. Because they've now had 300,000 they're gaining. That is what we're playing with here. Increased wages at the same level of production of goods and services will simply cause inflation and the value will disappear. Okay. Let us go and touch our fundamentals.
Wage indexation, it's a self-fulfilling prophecy.
Yes.
That's how economists describe it.
Thank you very much. I was trying to be technical.
Professor Aworawo, organized labor is also talking about electricity tariff.
Yes.
They're saying that to just increase from 65 naira per kilowatt hour to 225 naira per kilowatt hour is a problem. Yeah. They want government to go back to 65 naira per kilowatt hour. Do you think that's also an unreasonable demand?
It's not unreasonable. No. Do you know what has happened, Dr. Abati? People who government say will get, PhD say will get 20 hours. Yeah. They now have the 20 hours, but they're even afraid to use it. Because if you want to use, if you want to use 12 out of that 20, you need about 500,000, 200,000, which you don't even have. So I have friends who are on that band A. The light is there, but they don't use it. They switch off everything because they can't pay, they can't afford it. It's just, and somebody who's on band B, will use the same 10 hours, will pay a quarter of what somebody on band A. So you have the power, but they're not even using it.
Okay, Professor.
So it shows you that labor is not unreasonable in saying that some reversal is desirable.
Professor Kila, I mean, I don't know. I'm sure you are on band A. Are you planning to migrate to band D if they will allow it?
No, we're just regulating the amount of power we use, You don't simply use less, as you rightly say, because it's too expensive. I think labor is not unreasonable asking for a freeze on the tariff because affordability matters. It's part of the kind of negotiation they can give labor to do that. Exactly. I think that is it's not an unreasonable thing. Definitely.
But both of you don't want a general strike.
Oh no! I joined the government and the minister in appealing to labor. Let us not strike. Let us do. There's a looming strike which will come to Mr. Aworawo another day, not today, I'm sure. Asutu is planning something. Let me be the boy that will leak it. Because I know Asutu is not happy. Something is brewing.
No, government,
let me warn you. Asu is planning something.
Well, government has been trying to meet us halfway.
We thought our government has done for university teachers.
Government, government has been responsive. Unlike to be very fair, the government has been responsive, and we hope it won't get to the point where we say we want to go on strike before the demands are met.
Okay, this is where we draw the curtain. Thank you very much, Professor Anthony Kila. Thank you very much, Professor Aworawo. You've been watching This Day Live, the Sunday talk show here on Arise News. I'm Ruben Abati from my entire team here in Lagos. It is bye for now, and thank you very much for watching.